Hello everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about the Arma 3 CDLC that we almost got by Bohemia Interactive. The Arma 3 CDLC would have taken place on the Western Front in World War I. First, a little background knowledge on World War I. It began on 1914 and ended in 1918. It was a global conflict mainly between the Entente powers and the Central powers. On the Entente side were mainly France, Britain, Russia, and later the US. And on the Central powers were mainly the German Empire, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. It began after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The war saw trench warfare, mass casualties, and new technologies like the tank. It ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Now, before we get into the background of the CDLC itself, I feel that's appropriate to learn a little bit about the creator and the project dev of this mod. Sokolonko, which if I'm butchering that name, I'm so sorry, but Sokolonko, he was the head developer, modeler, did textures and configs plus management all for the Northern Front mod. He also worked on other major projects like There Is Only War mod and the IFA 3 mod. Now looking at Sokolonko's mod he posted on Steam, which is the Sokolonko's Great War mod posted on February 11th, 2025, the main parts of the description are, and I quote, "Well, then you ain't gonna get most of it here, because what you get here is just the assets I've made for a CDLC pitch back in early 2024, and it didn't make it through Bohemia Interactive's approval. I'm really not going to support this, and I won't add more stuff to it. You can probably send a strongly worded letter to Bohemia Interactive to let them know it was a mistake and not to approve that project. If you want to get in touch with me, do it via Discord at Sokolonko, which will be linked down in the description below. What you can find here are uniforms from 1914 for both sides for World War I weapons with cool animations and custom assets all done by Sokolonko. And the credits, which I'll put on screen. After looking at his Discord, there was more and I summarized it for you guys. So on Bohemia Interactive's decision, Bohemia Interactive rejected the World War I CDLC because of its concerns over the large scope and the uncertainty around the game mode's viability. Their experience with other large-scale projects like CSOA and Spearhead 1944, which I personally enjoyed, which were long in development but ultimately unsuccessful, made them wary of similar risks. They prefer smaller, less risky CDLCs like the Sahara and Reaction Forces, which were more successful due to their limited scope. Despite the CDLC's potential, Bohemia Interactive expressed doubt about its success, especially as a World War I concept is a total conversion, which typically involves a massive scope. Faction and assets. The CDLC was going to be released somewhere late 2025, including the French, German, and US. The British were going to be a 2.0 thing with maybe air assets included, depending on how sales went. In each faction there was one tank, one field gun, one heavy artillery, one HMG, and one mortar per faction. A lot of various small arms including prototypes and huge variety of explosives, except for the US, which is only small arms and uniforms, plus a one special hero asset for each faction except the US. For the Germans, it was supposed to be the Big Bertha, which was a giant artillery piece, and for the French, the Saint Camon. No melee, but a Day 1 workshop mod compatibility with IMS. Now the campaign. The campaign would span 5 missions, starting with mobile warfare and progressing into trench warfare, culminating in a mission where players use a FT-17 tank to capture a Big Bertha position. The story focused on revenge and defeating a powerful enemy weapon. The multiplayer mechanics would also be usable in single player, ensuring a consistent experience. The pitch was submitted in February 2024 after being greenlit by Bohemia Interactive to proceed. With a World War I total conversion mod, the team had developed some working features like looting, resource management, and a building system, similar to the game's Foxhole. However, despite the team's efforts and assets, Bohemia Interactive's rejection was largely due to concerns about the large scope and the game mode's unproven potential. The concept for the Foxhole-like game mode was AI-controlled bunkers, a tech tree progression from 1914 and 1918, and a focus on logistics and strategic assaults. Despite challenges with AI and trenches, the design was tested and had strong potential that would ultimately didn't meet Bohemia Interactive's expectations. The terrain, which was designed by Tampa, was set in Luxembourg, chosen for its variety of terrain, forests, rivers, hills, and flat fields, which was seen more interesting as the flat historical Western Front. On the screen now is the team in development, In conclusion, Bohemian Interactive rejected the project due to its large scope and uncertain success of the game mode. They favor smaller, more contained CDLCs with fewer risks. The team had worked extensively on the project, but ultimately Bohemian Interactive's stance on large-scale conversions led to this cancellation, or its denial of being a CDLC. Now, with that said, here are some opinions from me and the community. First of all, I'm very passionate about World War I, and I enjoy the time period, vehicles, guns, and tactics of that era. I also feel that there's still good World War I games, well, at least at the Arma 3 scale. The closest I felt to having an enjoyable experience in the World War I setting were games like Verdun, Alzonzo, and Tannenberg, all done by World War I game series. Also, the Arma 3 World War I modding scene doesn't live up to a World War I standard as well. We have very outdated mods like the World War I Remembrance mod, last updated in 2019, but there is an exception, which is the JAM Shell Shock World War I, done by Jamie. This guy is a legend for creating what he has so far, but it's based on a small fraction of the war. I feel that a World War I CDLC deserves a chance to be experienced by the Arma 3 community members. I also feel that a World War I CDLC in Arma 3 would promote all types of modders, like scenario makers, modelers, map makers, and people that do retextures. Focusing on the last major CDLC, Spearhead 1944 for example, Before the Birds Chirp, Almighty Jug, Big Cat Rescue, all single player and co-op, were scenarios done by Black Fox. The M36 Jackson, the M24 Shaffy, done by Truck Gaming, the Darkest December 1944, done by E50 Panzer and Brian Hates Games, Pegasus Bridge, done by Swerven, and the African Corps for the Germans, Spearhead 1944, done by Grits. All of these mods were inspired by Spearhead 1944, and there are many more mods that come from Spearhead. So a World War I CDLC would promote some good World War I mods. Some other reasons for a World War I CDLC for Arma 3 are that World War I is a unique and underrepresented setting. Unlike World War II, the Great War has been largely overlooked in military simulation games. A World War I CDLC would offer a fresh and historical rich experience to Arma 3. Also, another reason is that it hasn't been done to the Arma 3 scale. While some mods do touch on World War I, a fully fledged CDLC would provide high quality assets, professional animations, and mechanics tailored for the era, making it a definitive World War I experience in Arma 3. In conclusion, while Bohemian Interactive's decision to reject the World War I CDLC was disappointing, it doesn't diminish the passion many of us have for the era. A World War I CDLC in Arma 3 could have brought something truly unique to the table. I encourage you and all to keep the conversation going and share your thoughts with Bohemian Interactive. Maybe, and just maybe, they'll see the potential and reconsider in the future. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you guys think in the comments.